The Nuts and Bolts of Writing, Season 3, a podcast where we talk to writers about the process of writing, dive into book reviews of fiction and nonfiction books, explore literary theory, and explore different writing techniques for fiction, nonfiction, technical, academic, philosophical, and other genres of writing. Hi, everyone. This is Imelda, or Fortunatus Games, the host of this podcast. Today, I'll be reviewing American novelist Philip Roth's Operation Shylock, A Confession. Published in 1993, Operation Shylock is a work of autobiographical fiction that explores Roth's favorite themes: diaspora, Jewish identity, and also his real life experiences of the temporary side effects of triazolam, a post-operative sedative. The book follows a fictionalized version of Philip Roth on his journey to Israel, where he sees the trial of accused war criminal John Demanyuk, a Ukrainian American who allegedly served as a Nazi camp guard. During this time, Roth discovers someone is impersonating him. This person looks just like him and is using his name and fame as a writer to spread diasporicism, the opposite of Zionism. This ideology promotes the return of Israel's Jews of European descent to their European nations of exile. The rest of the book is about Roth's encounters with this impersonator, whom he calls Moishe Pipik, as well as his encounters with people with different ideologies. Moishe Pipik is the Yiddish joking name that translates to Moses' belly button, according to Roth. To him, it, quote, probably connotated something slightly different to every Jewish family on our block. The little guy who wants to be a big shot, the kid who pisses in his pants, the someone who is a bit ridiculous, end quote. Roth also talks about the negative experiences he has after taking triazolam, which affects his ability to write and his self-confidence. Although I have never taken this medicine, I could relate to the self-doubt he had. I especially found this quote compelling. You know what's at the heart of the misery of a breakdown? Me-itis. Microcosmosis. Drowning in the tiny tub of yourself. It's so true. I've often felt like I was drowning in the tiny tub of myself during the pandemic, when there was no place to go and I had no real career, personal, or creative goals. Actually, I had too many creative goals, as you can see in the first 200 something episodes of this podcast, but they were just a distraction from the crushing depression I felt about my failure to have a conventional career. I also deeply identified with this quote. Could he continue to maintain his sanity this long? He didn't know. That's why he was devouring 2 or 3 books a day, to remove himself every minute that he could from the madness of this life. During and even after the pandemic, until I decided to go for my master's in September 2023, I was doing exactly what Roth was doing. Only instead of reading, I was scrolling on social media and drawing pages from my comics and escaping from my mundane, goalless pandemic life through fiction. Anyways, back to the book. All in all, Operation Shylock was a philosophical and, despite the serious topics, a comedic read. Roth's doppelganger, whom he calls Moishe Pipik, is especially hilarious, particularly when the two argue. For example, this is what Roth says to Pipik. Look, I've got more personalities than I can already use. All you are is one too many. The context of this quote is that Pipik is much more humorous than the serious Roth. He never takes himself seriously, while Roth does and has just recovered from his psychological breakdown and doubts about his reading. Roth also makes this comment when thinking about his impersonator. No, a man's character isn't his fate. A man's fate is the joke that his life plays on his character. Ultimately, the interactions with Pipik reveal that Operation Shylock is another metafictional book by Roth exploring how authors construct their own reality and what fiction means to them. Additionally, Perhaps Roth's point with Pippic is that looking too hard at yourself can fracture yourself, as reviewer Richard Eder wrote in his 1993 review of the book in Los Angeles Times. Link is in the description. And I have to agree, the more you think about yourself, the more neurotic you will feel. Roth has done a great job of capturing what depression and anxiety looks like. It is indeed an unending obsession with oneself, especially one's flaws. However, the point about the medicine and Roth's resulting breakdown isn't the main point of the book. Like his other books, this book primarily covers the theme of diasporic Jewish identity versus Israel. Everyone has a double face. His old classmate Zayed, a Palestinian, wants him to advance the Palestinian cause, while Mr. Smilesberger, who turns out to be a high ranking officer of Mossad, the Israeli CIA, briefly kidnaps Roth, appeals to his Jewish identity, and assigns him to infiltrate a group of people with ties to the Palestinian side. In contrast to these sides, we have Pippic, who is a diasporicist who appeals to Roth's memories of his Yiddish speaking grandparents. He reminds him that his grandparents weren't from Israel, but from Poland, and that they didn't speak Hebrew, but Yiddish. All of these threads cause Roth, and through him, the reader, to think about all the different threads at play. There are no balances, as reviewer Richard Eder said, but only, quote, unresolvable contradiction. Whether he's dealing with contradictions between Israelis and Arabs, Israeli Jews and diasporic Jews, and two different parts of the self, as reflected by the interchanges between Pippic and Roth. All in all, Operation Shylock is a great read, especially if you're interested in the themes of diaspora, ethnic identity, depression, and anxiety, and how writers interpret the quote self through fiction. I give the book 5 out of 5 stars.